Welcome back.
Welcome back to NWA.
I've realized, Joe, in the last couple episodes, since I got this new mic, um, my sound is a bit louder than you, so I've made some adjustments. But if anyone listening can let us know on how our sound is, I just find that like when I listen in the car, my sound is a bit louder than yours. Um, yeah, I just want to, I find it
Okay.
where I laugh, I have to like turn the radio, like the volume down. I don't want to like
You have to laugh like quieter.
I know, I like, hold the mic away from my mouth. I don't wanna, like, blow anyone's eardrums. Um, Joe, before we get into this episode, I wanna do, like, a quick little housekeeping update, if that's okay with you.
Of course.
So, the cat. My aunt messaged
Oh
me.
my gosh, the cat.
She's a religious listener to this podcast. Shout out to Aunt Nancy for listening. Thank you for supporting Nurses with Attitude. Yeah, anyway, she texted me and she was like, "Oh my gosh, you got a cat. Like what happened? What happened after, what I said in the last episode?" So basically, I think in the last episode, Monday morning, we were going to take the cat to the vet to see if she was chip checked. And she was. So Ben and I ended up taking her Monday evening, and she is microchipped, and the owner's information was on the website through the Humane Society, blah, blah, blah. The vet ended up calling the owner, and the phone number was not in service. And then the vet was like, "Well, I can give you the registered house address for the cat." And it was, in Airdrie. And Ben and I were like, "Yeah, absolutely. Like, we'll drive over there, see if anyone owns a cat, blah, blah, blah." So we do. When I get to this house, Joe, there's some lady answers the door, and I'm like, "Hi, like, by chance, are you missing a cat?" And she goes, "No, like, both our cats are here." And I said, "Okay, thank you." And the reason I wasn't super specific in like the color, sex, things like that is the vet said that, don't just like hand this cat over to anybody, you know?
Mm.
And then as I'm
Is it
walking
because some
away,
some cats are like on the market? Like some cats are
well,
very popular, so you
yeah, like, I guess if you had, like, a bangle or something, like, people might try to if you posted, like, "missing cat," like, someone might try to, like, take it. I guess the vet has seen this happen before, so they were just very cautious.
wow.
They're like, if someone does claim her registered name was Leia, so they were like, maybe just don't say the color or, like, the sex and just ask the person, like, "Well, what color's the cat? What's her registered name?" You know what I mean? Like, or show a vet
You
bill
have
or
to
something,
sit
like,
this
proof.
you have to sit this person in an interrogation room with a two-way
Yeah.
mirror, and Ben has to stand on one side, and you walk in. You guys do good cop, bad cop routine.
For real, this is like the vet was so serious though, and I'm like, "Okay, like, we're gonna do the right thing." So anyway, yeah, we go see this lady to the house. This lady answers the door. She said, "No, our two cats are here." I said, "Okay, thank you." And as I'm walking away, she goes, "Wait, like, what color is the cat?" And I guess she like had this like
Oh,
moment of doubt in her mind where she was like, "Fuck, like, are both my cats here?" And I was like, "Oh, she's gray and white." And the lady was like, "No, I don't own a gray and white cat." And that was that. I mean, I have an email for the registered owner, and she has not responded to any of my emails. No one has reached out on Facebook. I scrolled all the way back to May on the missing like Facebook pets page in our city, and no posting of this cat. So I guess we have our firstborn child, Joe.
wow, you have a kid kitty or a child kitty.
Yeah. So
Childy. No, that doesn't work.
her registered name was Leia. Ben and I weren't like total fans of that, so we're calling her Luna, which is like we're just trying to keep with the same syllables, and she does actually respond to Luna. So, yep, she's with
Okay,
us.
nice.
She's super sweet. She's actually more like a dog, I would say. She's like comes when her name is called, and
Aw.
she sleeps with us, and Yeah, she's been a really nice addition to our home. So I just wanted to give that little update before we jumped into today's episode.
Yeah, congratulations. That's so awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, we're pretty
It's
excited.
so nice.
It was like very unexpected, but you know, my mom was like, "She chose you." And I'm like, I guess. Like she's
She
sweet
definitely
though.
did.
Yeah.
And she
It
she looked very well groomed, so like I really think that someone must have just not wanted her. Like it's so sad to say, but like maybe these people just like sold their house, changed their email and phone, and were like just left the cat behind.
it's so awful, and she's 9.5 years old. Like she's almost a senior cat.
Whoa.
Yeah,
What?
man.
Nine and a
She's an
half
old
years old.
lady.
Holy
Yeah.
cow. I did not. She looked. I thought it was like maybe like a year or two, like from the photos
I
you sent.
know. That's what I thought too. And then when we were at the vet, they gave me like all of her history while we were there, and I was asking them like, can we just re-chip her, like update her info essentially to our address? And they were like, yeah, just come back in like a month, and there's a process or whatever. But yeah, we'll just have her re-chip to our address and our info, and the cat's ours.
Well, you guys totally did the right thing. Like it's so awesome. You were in this situation and you navigated it like you did. You crossed all the dots or whatever that saying is. Like you did everything by the book, and then now you saved a little kitty's life or an old kitty's life, I guess.
Yeah, crossed all our T's, dotted all our I's.
There we go. That's it. That's the
Yeah.
one.
All right, let's get into the
Honestly, I
episode.
will I will say I will say that phrase, and I've said it like a few times this week, and I just gave up on saying it. So I'll be like, I dotted I's and crossed T's or like whatever it is, and I don't know, I just go with it. People are like,
Yeah,
that's not how it goes.
we're
But I'm like,
faking it
ah,
till we
well,
make it.
whatever. Exactly.
All right, guys, before we get into the episode, don't forget to follow us on Spotify and share this podcast with your friends. I think Joe was saying that we had a total of like 150 listens for our 10 episodes, which is pretty exciting. 15 listens per episode, if you average it out. And yeah, we're really enjoying this. So don't forget to follow.
Please, guys. We're just some small town nurses with a big dream to talk about random stuff weekly.
Yo, we got lots to say. Joe, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about burnout, all about burnout.
Yes, yes,
I think
yes,
that's so
yes.
common. For those of you who know, I'm up north right now. Actually, this is my last night up north. So, and I've worked
Woo!
straight like 23 days, 12-hour shifts, for 23 days straight. So I'm pretty tired. It's not the worst that it's ever been. Like I still feel like pretty good, but I definitely need a little bit of a break. And I'm super excited. I think I'm just super excited to go home, which is why I don't feel exhausted. But I think once I get home, it's all gonna hit me at once.
Yo, you're gonna crash
Um,
hard.
I think so. You know what, Leanne? I woke up this morning. Today was my first day off, and I'm like, I'm gonna sleep in till like I have to leave on Thursday. Like I'm just not waking up all day. And I woke up at 5 a.m. like completely primed and ready to go.
Of
Couldn't fall
course you
back to
did.
sleep. I've been up since 5 because
Oh my
you get
god.
in that routine, and it's kind of hard to rest too because you're just like, hey, like no, your body wants to do stuff because those are the
Yep.
hours that you function within, right?
Right, Joe, and I think this is, I mentioned in a previous episode where I have this like complex where I can't rest. Like
Yeah.
I always have to be doing something, and I think that's where this stems from is because I'm always moving or doing something or organizing something or like whatever. I can't rest. And like the same goes for you now is like you've now done 23 days in a row, 12-hour shifts, which is absolutely insane, man. I don't know how you do that. Like I could not. There's no way. I would be so crusty. So crusty. Like,
Oh, there was a few days that was pretty rough, to be honest.
yeah. Yeah,
But
I don't doubt
you
it.
end up getting to work, and I work at a long-term care home right now, or a
Mhm.
CCC as they call it, and
Mhm.
the residents just like I'm like drag my feet to work, and I get there and just like the residents hanging out with them and just interacting like it it makes it so much more doable, but you have to take care of yourself at the end of the day, even if you have great residents, right? Because burnout is a thing, and yeah, I honestly suck with like I'm great at recognizing my limit, but only once I've gotten there. I'm not good at like prophylactically like being like,
Yeah.
okay, I need to do these measures and all this stuff,
Yeah.
and it just leads to burnout.
Right. And, Joe, when I think about burnout, like my first experience with burnout, now, I'd work as a healthcare aide like prior to nursing school, but when I think about like nursing specifically, I think I like experienced burnout in school was the first time where it really hit me. Now, I don't want to like scare any nursing students or anything, but like they it's a lot of information thrown at you all at once, and you have a lot of classes and a lot of labs and clinical placements, and it's just a lot to navigate all at once. And I remember feeling so burnt out, Joe, like in the second year of school. I think like I had some family things going on and exams were stressful. I also went into nursing school. I smoked at the time and I was trying to quit smoking. And that was just like an added stress at the time. I don't smoke anymore, but at the time, like that was my crutch. And when I tried to quit that, it was like so stressful. And I look back and I'm like, wow, like that's not it's probably not the healthiest coping mechanism.
But it's a
That
coping mechanism.
Right, and I know a lot of people use it, and, just because you're a nurse, like, I don't know, I smoked all through school, and yeah, I got lots of stares and whatever. It's fine, it is what it is, like, I can't just,
Yeah,
like,
hey,
change how I was, but
yeah.
anyway, that I remember
How
that
long have you quit
being,
smoking?
well, since, like, 2019, so, like, 3 years now, I think?
Oh, wow, yeah. Yeah, I completely forgot that you smoked. Like, I just completely
Yeah.
forgot that.
I
But I
don't think
remember
I
some cold days
smoked.
you dragged my ass out there too, and I was like, "Man, I
I
really
know,
wish you didn't smoke."
I know. I don't think I smoked that much in school, but, like, oh, I just look back and
I
I'm
don't
like,
think it was a problem
"Why?"
or anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh. Anyway, I remember my first, like, burnout being in school. Did you ever experience burnout in school?
Oh, yeah, I think you were with me, like, I straight up had a peptic ulcer. Do you remember that day?
Oh, yeah. I didn't know if you
Holy
wanted to,
shit.
like, get into your health some of your, like, I don't
Oh.
wanna say health issues, but I know that a lot of things are caused by stress, which were,
Oh,
ultimately because of school
I was
stress and then work stress, and it's just like a vicious cycle, you know?
I was a mess in school, like, after school, like, I was able, like and once I got my career going as a nurse, I was able, like, to get better and, like, recuperate, but, like, during school, and like, it was 100%, like, I broke out with a bunch of acne, um, and yeah, like, I think the worst part was, like, peptic ulcers, and that's because for me, the clinical placements were very early, and, like, also, like, you're doing clinical placements, but you have school, and like you said, you have the quizzes, all the quizzes you have to do, you're learning this whole new way of life, and you're also learning to be responsible for someone's life, right? Like, you go into clinical
Yeah.
placement and, like, you need to be able to manage your medication, manage the, interventions that need to be in place, and your assessment and constant evaluation. So I was drinking so much pre-workout because I don't really like coffee that much. So I drank pre-workout, and I was having like 2 or 3 scoops a day of like pre-workout.
Oh
Like I'd
my
have one in the
god,
morning, one at
Joe.
lunch, and one at night. Yeah, because I like at night I get home and I'm exhausted, but I had to study, and yeah, I had peptic ulcers, probably one of the worst pains I've had in my life, and it
It's
was
funny
actually pretty funny. Sorry, you go.
I w I was just gonna say, it's funny you say this because I never pictured you this way in school. Like, I never pictured you as someone who was experiencing burnout or, like, run down, like, you always showed up to class, you were always hype, you always had your, like, protein shake, or I guess it was pre-workout, but, like, you looked like
Yeah.
someone who, you were doing workouts, like, to me, like, you just were someone who had a good head on his shoulders.
Yeah, honestly, I've focused on the mindset of, I actually remember this comment you made, it was I think it was in pathophysiology, and I was so stressed for this one exam, Leanne, and I literally went to the prof's office every single day. Every single day I went because the class time wasn't enough. It was like 2 hours. She would do
Yeah.
like a sprint through the class. I know I know you probably remember that, and it was just
Yo,
brutal.
that
So every
that
single
class was
day,
brutal.
oh, but she would be sweating. Like this teacher, she would literally like it was intense. It was a very,
Mhm.
very short time period that we had for all that information. So I went to her room every single day and I got my test back and I scored a 98%. And I actually missed a question. Like that's why I didn't get 100%. It's because I physically missed a question on there. Like I just didn't answer it.
Yeah.
Um, and you said to me, you're like, what, like, why do you study so hard? Like, why is this always like a thing, you know? And for me at the time, it was just like I had no other choice. Like for me at that time in my life in nursing school, um, I was at like a crossroads where it was like, if I want to do this, I want to put everything I have into this. So I was
Mhm.
like, this is what I'm gonna do, and like things got in my way. Um, but yeah, you just gotta do it, and you just gotta like show up, and I did
Yeah.
that, and my body struggled for a bit, and then now I have a little bit of I have the same lookout on life, but it's changed a little bit. But I think
Yeah.
we'll talk about all that in next episode when I think we'll talk about like wellness and everything.
I'm looking forward to that episode. But I think at the time, Joe, basically, like, there was no option for you to fail. And for me, like,
That's
I look at
exactly it.
you and I see you as like this motivated person. Like, if you're in something, you're in it 100%. You're always, it's all or nothing. For me, like, I ebb and flow. And I think about, me doing my RN right now. There's days where, or even a couple weeks at a time, where I'm like knocking out courses and I can finish a course in a week. And then I go like a month without even doing anything. And nursing school was the same way. There were some classes where I really thrived and did well in, but then there were other classes where, like psych, it just didn't pique my interest. And I just sat through it
Mm,
and just bullshitted the exams. And like I didn't see the value in it at the time. And I don't think that makes me a bad
yeah.
nurse by any means, but I think everybody's so different and everybody experiences, burnout differently. So, yeah, like for me, I don't know. Nursing school was definitely stressful. But then when I look at working on the floor with COVID, that was like a whole other kind of burnout. You know what I mean? Like, I think school was more of a
Oh
mental
yes.
burnout because, like I said, we have all this information being thrown at us and you're like a sponge, but you can't possibly absorb all that information. There's no possible way. And,
Oh yeah.
but then when I look at going back to the floor and like working, it has that mental aspect to it where you always have to be, on your game in terms of giving meds and, doing the proper assessment and interpreting data and all these things. But then there's also this physical aspect to it too, where you're constantly on your feet, you're rotating people, you're giving
Hmm.
showers. Like I did it all, and you're feeding people, and, the list just goes on and on. So I think there's all this to say, like, there's definitely different types of burnout. And I know that burnout doesn't just apply to nursing, it applies to any job.
Yeah.
And something I really want to mention, Joe, is that I find now that I work in community more than long term care, I notice that a lot of the families experience burnout and we're sort of the last call, to come and support.
Yeah.
And I think if there's just more awareness about burnout and how to manage it, I don't know. I just think we should talk about this more within the nursing community. It's not something we ever talked about in school. I don't know. I don't remember them mentioning anything about maybe a class for like 20 minutes. They
Yeah,
were like, "Oh,
yeah, like they kind of went over it a little bit, but I think one of the huge things with specifically not just nursing, but any kind of care role, so like with families as well, is caring for someone else and being responsible for someone else. Um,
yeah.
what do you think about that? Like I think that's a because I worked a lot of like labor jobs and stuff, and sure I got tired, but you're right, during COVID, it was so mentally taxing on the body and the soul as well. And it was just very hard to it was hard to
Yeah.
take care of yourself because even when you get home at night, there's like this heaviness of, is this person okay? Because you're responsible for someone's life. Like you are the person, um, like your personal support workers, they would go to
Mhm.
you if there was an issue. Like you are the supervisor of that whole
Yeah.
unit.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, just like it adds an extra stress and the burnout. Like I don't know about you, but do you feel whenever you would say that you were burned out in nursing when like throughout COVID, would you say that it snuck up on you gradually and you were able to say like, "Oh man, I'm starting to burn out," or was it kind of like you lived through that season and then it all hit you at once and you were like, you couldn't just hold like you couldn't hold your feet anymore?
Joe, like when I look back at COVID, I think that there was definitely a fear aspect to it. And, especially as a new grad nurse, there was like this fear over me and all these like media headlines and, you know, like we've said in the COVID episode, like going to the grocery store was just like so draining. Everything was draining, not even work, just life. Because anytime you went
Yes.
anywhere, you had to wash your hand like more than normal. You had to,
But then you're also sketched, like you walk by someone at the grocery store
right,
and like you're like, I don't
right.
want COVID because I don't want to give it to my residents.
Well, this is it. It's like we were on high alert all the time. And so not only were we on high alert, at work because, we want to make sure we have proper PPE practices and we're washing our hands and all of that, but like you said, in our regular day-to-day life, we were so afraid to, not only get our family sick, of course, like we have vulnerable parents and things like that, but
Hmm.
to bring it into the workplace where it could affect several residents was just so overwhelming. It was such an overwhelming thought.
Yes.
And I think that's what really made it more taxing on us in terms of, having burnout would be the fear component to it. But to answer your question, Joe, I think that like at the beginning of the pandemic, like I said in the other episode, I was kind of pretty relaxed about it at first. I was like, there's a couple cases over in China, like we're okay. And then it kind of hit me like a wall. Like when I walked into work one day and they were scanning people and wearing masks and like full PPE and like I had to get a swab shoved up my nose every day. Like that is when it became overwhelming and I felt like
Yeah.
I couldn't turn my brain off.
It was just go, go, go every single day. Like you're always
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, COVID like really did me in for sure. I was I had worked a part-time line at the time, but I was picking up hours to make full-time hours. And I remember reaching a point and just taking a couple days off and I kind of felt guilty for that, but as time went on, now when I left the long-term care home, we were still technically within COVID, like there were still residents that had COVID at the home and I remember taking what I like to call a mental health day like once every 2 weeks. I was working full-time hours, but I just like the 4 days in a row was too much. I just couldn't do it. And I know that sounds ridiculous for like people that work Monday to Friday, but it's a different kind of environment. Like when you're I don't know,
Mhm.
passing meds for 40 people, trying to do dressings, trying to do all of your charting, plus manage a team, plus call families, plus give a bath, plus make sure the meals are delivered to the rooms, making sure that people with symptoms are swabbed, making sure you're swabbed, like all these things. I could just go on and on and on, you know?
Calling the pharmacy, calling the doctor,
Oh my
referrals to
God.
the physio, referrals to mental health. Like it's
Filling
yeah,
the
it can go
PPE
on for days.
carts, like just so much. And the problem was that staff were leaving the facilities because they were afraid. And so it put more
Yes.
stress on the staff that stayed. Um, But yeah, that was my biggest sense of burnout, and I knew that, for me, Joe, I've always loved resident care. I love being hands-on with people. I love, picking on old people. I'm a jokester. Like, I like to be a person. Like, I'm not just a robot when I'm on the floor, and I think that that's what a lot of people really respond well to. But I just couldn't do it. So when an opportunity came up for me not to work on the floor, like, I had to jump on it, and
Mm,
that kind of landed me where I am now. And I remember I was working on the floor, and I know I've said this before, but I would come home. I would work 7 to 3. I'd be home by like 3:45. I'd come home, have a snack. I'd go to bed. I'd have a nap. And then I'd wake up, I'd have dinner, and then I would just go and basically hang out in my room all night. Or, you know, I wasn't doing any self-care during COVID,
yeah,
you
and it
know?
made it very hard to do self-care
Yeah, it
because
did.
usually like self-care, like having a meal with your friend. For me, I love going to the grocery store. Like I love just walking down the aisles, like taking
Yeah,
my
yeah.
time. Rollbacks at Walmart, like it's a good time. Um, but like you couldn't do that. Like
I know. And it was like, because we couldn't do these things, I almost wanted to do them more. Yeah, I don't know if you
yeah,
felt
right,
that
yeah.
way, but
I
like,
never went to the store as much as I did like during COVID. To be honest, like I always needed something.
yeah, it was just a way to get out of the house, and oh, it was just a shitty time. Anyway, that's sort
It
of,
was.
I don't want to
Oh,
like dwell on COVID. We did a whole episode on that if you guys are interested in, hearing more about our experience with that, specifically working in long-term care sites. Both Joe and I worked in long-term care. We do have an episode on that. I think it's episode 4 or 5. So check that out. But
nice.
how so Joe, you've been working 23 days straight, and I know that you have
Yes,
very
ma'am.
limited resources. So how are you maintaining a healthy mental health state? Like, what are you doing to manage your burnout?
Yeah, like I said, that Nintendo Switch that I bought, like that's been a lifesaver. Um,
Yeah.
but sleeping's been really, really easy for me. I love being at home, but there's a lot of like distractions, and I'm the kind of guy like I see Jelena, and as soon as I see her, if she's not busy, I'm like, Kate, like we're hanging out, like let's do stuff, and like I act like a child. I'm like, oh, like Kate, like Jay's here, like we're gonna go do stuff now, because that's just what it is. So we often do a
Yeah.
lot of things like when I'm at home, whether it's like going for walks or going to see a movie or like going out to grab something to eat. We're always like doing something.
Yeah.
Or even if it's just like watching TV with her and then like eating on the couch. Um, and that's like my own poison because like I just love hanging out with my wife. It's one of my favorite things to do. She's my best friend.
I
So
was
when
gonna
I
say
actually
she's
come
your
out
person.
here, she's mine, right? Like I see her and I get so excited and
Mhm.
um she works from home too. So like I set boundaries on like if she's like in our office, like I'll go say hi and like whatever. But I know like when she's working, but when she's not working, I like cling on it. And it's also vice versa. Like when I'm doing something, as soon as I'm done that task, like she's like, oh hey, whatever it might be, right? So
Mhm.
when I'm here, I actually find that I can just sleep, like, and I sleep for like a good amount of time, and I don't have my cats. I don't watch like as much TV as I do, but yeah, I've been pretty active with like um not just throwing positive thoughts on everything because I don't like that like toxic positivity mindset.
Yeah.
But just looking at it, this time I'm only up here for a month, so looking at it like one more day, one more day, one more day, and then
Yeah.
watching my TV shows that I've downloaded. Um,
Yeah.
that's honestly like that's pretty much it. Playing Smash Bros. Um, but just relatively doing the podcast too. Like that's just been great to come and like unwind a bit, but just not taking things too seriously. And I think that's what a lot of burnout is due to because we just take things way too seriously. I'm not saying don't take our job seriously because it is very, very serious what we have to do. But I think that's why you speak to nurses who've been nurses for like 15 plus years and they're very chill. At the same time, they're getting everything done. They do amazing care.
Mhm.
They're great at, like, what you said, like, going in and, like, actually interacting with, like, the residents and actually, like, you know, being playful with them or, like, whatever it is, but they interact with them. And I think it's hard for, like, a new nurse sometimes is you come on and you have 32 or, like, 40 residents, and you have all these tasks that you listed, but then you also wanna, like, and, like, connect and actually grow with your residents, and it's very hard because it's like you have to choose. Like, do you wanna
Yeah,
choose to, like, connect with them, or do you wanna choose to go do your documentation? Um,
right.
and that's something I think I mentioned this in an episode too, like, I always got some other nurses would always bug me because I'd prefer to go sit down with someone in their room, for, like, 30 minutes and talk to them, and sometimes that would, like, lead to, like, I'd have to stay later to do my documentation. And, like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't even get paid for it, like, I was like, "No, like, I'll just stay and do my documentation." Um, and that's how I honestly, Leanne, like, it might sound very, like, unconclusive, but that's how I kinda deal with it, is I try to, like, love wherever I can, I believe love does, and when you live from a place of, like, love, you can do
Mhm.
all things, and
Yeah.
these last 23 days, like, it's like, don't get it wrong, exhausted, but, always trying to look at the bright side. I got a roommate, she came in last week and, like, she's super chill, so we've been hanging out a bit and, like, just yeah, just super, super chill, and, I don't know, it's just, like, trying to eliminate that stress, um, and, like, the sometimes we can create stress for ourselves, then COVID, once again, all that stress was, like, thrown on us at
Yeah.
once.
Mhm. And I think it's
So
important
just
to
trying to stay
note
chill.
that, like, when we were hit with COVID, we were brand new nurses, so we were just trying to navigate how to manage a proper workload. And so that I think also contributed to such an overwhelming experience, ultimately resulting in
Yeah.
burnout. Um, but Joe, it sounds like that you have a lot of, activities, whether it's like watching SpongeBob or whatever, that it's a mindless activity and it just lets you kind of
Yeah,
disconnect.
exactly, and, with, like, cartoons and stuff, honestly, sometimes after, like, a 12-hour day of, like, being a supervisor, caring for people, a lot of serious things that are going on, it's amazing just to come home and just, like, watch, like, SpongeBob and Patrick, like, interact with one another and just, like, the stupidest stuff, but it's like, I love it, like, it's like, this is
Yeah.
I'd much rather deal with this than, like, a soap opera or, like, intense drama series or whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's probably also nostalgic to you,
Oh,
right?
for sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
We used to watch SpongeBob growing up all the time.
You know what, Leanne? It's still on at the same times too, because I remember I used to finish school at 3:30, and there would be an episode at 3:30 and an episode at 4 o'clock. I'm like, that was engraved in my mind, and I would run home, and you know how they do, like, 15 minutes for one part, then 15 minutes for, like, the second part?
Yeah.
I'd get in at the second 15-minute point of, like, at, like, 3:45, I would get in, watch that part, then watch the full episode at 4 to 4:30.
That's
And
so
it's the same
funny.
exact times. So it's just funny because I remember these times. So when, like, 3:30 hits and if I'm at home, I'm like, "Hey, like, SpongeBob's on, like, go get my cereal and watch the TV."
Well, it probably, like, not only with the nostalgia, but it's probably comforting to watch. Like, it reminds you of home, right?
Yeah, oh, for sure. It reminds me of, like, you're not alone, like, in
Yeah.
in a place. Like, I think you're right, it reminds you of home, and it
Yeah.
brings a sense of, um honestly, there's still some lessons in these shows that I'm like, "Man, like, that's a really good point, SpongeBob. I will try to be more mindful."
It's so funny because I was telling Ben that you sent me a Snapchat of you watching SpongeBob again, and Ben was like, he laughed and he was like, "Oh, Joe's probably sitting there like in his SpongeBob jammies yelling like, 'In a pineapple under the sea.'"
SpongeBob SquarePants! I definitely was, by the way. I 100% was.
That's so funny. I said to Ben, I was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna tell Joe you said that." I'm like, I could so see that. You in the middle of none of it, just like screaming the SpongeBob theme song.
It's completely quiet, and then you just hear Joseph screaming SpongeBob.
That's hilarious.
But
Oh
honestly, like
gosh.
taking life like that, like being very whimsy, I think that's the key to life in all aspects, especially like in dealing like with burnout, just being kind of like a goof sometimes, you know.
Yeah, I think
I
that,
think
Joe, it's hard to separate work and life sometimes, though. And I struggle with this like day to day with having a work phone and all that. But I think it's important for us to set boundaries. And that's a good way to manage burnout, is when you leave work, try to leave work at work. Come home, do something mindless, relax your mind for a moment. Like, I think that's really good advice. Um, even though it may not be intentional, like if you never really realized you were doing it, you probably needed to do it anyway. You know what I mean? Like if you're coming home and
oh
just
for
kind of
sure.
chilling for a minute, you obviously need that minute to relax. You've been
Yeah,
running all day.
exactly.
Yeah,
And
so
it's really hard for the people who can't do that. Like a lot of
yeah.
nurses, they're very like more mature than us, I would say, in the sense of like they have kids, like they have a family, so
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
come home and they're doing that. And a lot of nurses like they'll work overnights just so they can come home and take care of their kids, like on those summer days when their kids don't go to school. So like
Oh
there's
man.
no break.
I don't I was going to bring this up and how like having kids would be so overwhelming, you know?
Yeah, it's very overwhelming. I see it. Me and Jelen
Yeah.
are like stuck at this spot. It's like we want to have kids,
Mhm.
um, and like we will, but we don't know when. And I think it's I don't know if you and Ben feel this way, but it's just one of those things that um I don't think we'll be ready until like it actually happens.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
that anyone I've ever talked to, you're never really ready.
yeah,
It just kind of one day
it
happens
just
and happens. And then you just
and
learn
then
to
like your
navigate your
mom
life
or
with that.
dad.
Yeah.
That's the weirdest thing. Like I know it's not gonna happen this way, but I just figure that like one day when I have a kid, I'm gonna be like, "Hey, I'm ready to be a dad." But like 4 hours ago, I was screaming SpongeBob SquarePants at the top of my lungs. So like, I just don't know. Maybe it's a
Yeah.
good thing because we can bond like that. But
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. Yeah. Oh well, cross that bridge when it comes. Don't stress about it.
oh, no stress at all.
I think you gave good advice though, Joe. This was good.
Just be whimsy. Like, do you have any like anything to add on that?
Um, we do want to do an episode. I think our next one will probably be on like health and wellness, just general talk about, diet, things like that, fitness. But I think that something I've been trying to get back into is having a proper routine. And so for me, because I work from home, it's a little bit different, but I know that when I worked on the floor, I had a routine. I would wake up, get ready, make coffee, head out the door. I'd make my lunch the night before, work all day, come home, nap. Like it was a routine. Was it the best routine? Probably not. I slept like 90% of the time, but it was still a routine. And working from home, like I'm just trying to establish a bit of a routine. I mean, every day is different and work is it fluctuates day to day. Some days I have to leave the house or I'm out all day, some days I'm not. So I think just having like a good routine and then having someone, for you, it's Jelena, having someone to lean on, like just to spend time with. It doesn't need to be anything, serious where you're having like heavy conversation all the time, but
Yeah.
being able to, I don't know, just come home, do something mindless for yourself, self care, whether that's like grabbing yourself a coffee instead of making yourself a coffee one day. Or I used to do that sometimes. Like, I'd be like, my self care today is I'm going to get myself a Starbucks. Like,
Ooh,
it's not something I drink every day, but, it's a little treat. And
it's a treat.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, so for me, that was like my little like self care for the day. Something so small. It doesn't even need to be or maybe I take a bath that night instead of a shower, or maybe I go up to bed a little bit earlier and watch some YouTube, or, like you don't have to do anything extensive for self-care, but
Mm.
maybe you devote an hour to reading a book, or I don't know, sit and watch TV with your wife. Like, could be anything.
Yeah.
Just,
Or like
I
pet
think,
your cat.
just right. I think just taking time for you is important, and having a routine at the same time, and I think, like I said, I don't, I'm getting better at this, but I'm not really someone who likes to relax all that much. But maybe even with your routine, if you're someone who's very busy with kids and, wants to get a workout in or whatever the case is, like, schedule in your self-care, or
Yeah.
multitask. Do eye patches while you're eating dinner.
Hustle.
I don't know.
Yeah, hustle to relax. Like you don't have to just
Yeah.
hustle to like keep going and like getting stuff done, but you can hustle to be like, I'm gonna sit on my ass right now and do nothing for the next 30 minutes,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. And I think, Joe, unfortunately, burnout's a huge topic in nursing, and it's something I think all of us have experienced from time to time. And I know that, excuse me, there's some resources online, like through the CNO of Ontario or the CLPNA of Alberta. They have courses on managing burnout. And there's, like we said in the last episode about managing conflict, there's like 5 steps to curing burnout. All this shit exists on the internet. You can find anything on the internet nowadays, but I
Find
think
five
just,
steps for anything.
yeah, but just finding something that brings your mind some relief is a good step in the right direction. Whether that's like a 10-minute walk. Maybe you walk to get coffee after dinner or a tea or whatever. Or maybe you do a 15-minute weight workout. It doesn't need to be anything that's like an hour long, or just do something for you, you know?
Yeah. And like that actively putting that in your schedule, it makes such a difference. And it's kind of like self-love. Like
Oh,
you're
yeah.
actively doing something for yourself and it will make you feel better. It will
And I
make you
think,
like happier.
yeah, I think statistically, I read somewhere that, don't quote me on this, but I think you need to do something 21 times for it to become a habit. So
Yes.
if you took 1 month, let's say you started in November, and for 21 days out of I think November has 30 days, 21 days out of the 30 days, you did something for yourself. Maybe that's, I don't know, go for a walk, spend time with your kids, um, watch a movie with your kids, make
We
something you
should
like
do
for
a
dinner.
challenge.
Well,
Yes.
Joe, actually,
We should do something like that.
since the beginning of October, I've trying to incorporate more movement into my life. And so whether that's like a walk, or riding my stationary bike, or doing like a quick weight workout or resistance band workout, I've kind of got a little set up at home, but I've been trying to just move my body more, because I know that as we're coming into the winter months, Ben and I have a lot of like painting to do and things like that. We're always kind of putting around the house, but I want to get back to feeling good. And I've been very stationary and stagnant for a while because I work from home. So I need, I've started October like making better choices for food. Like, I don't cut anything out per se, but maybe just being mindful of what I'm putting into my body, and then also trying to incorporate more movement. But I kind of wanted to touch on that in the next episode more. But that's sort of what I've been doing for the month of October. And I just kind of wanted to see what I felt like at the end of the month.
Yeah. And it's huge when you make like one little change. Um and you might not feel anything. Like I don't know if you ever felt this way, but you might not feel anything right away. But then you when you start going back to like old habits, then you notice like the big difference. You're like, whoa, like this did actually
Yeah.
make a difference.
What did I? Oh, I remember. Did I not text you the other day and I was like, man, I ate something and I felt like shit afterwards because I hadn't eaten it in a
I
while?
vaguely remember this. I think it was
Something.
after podcast actually. Yeah.
I
There's
think
something that
so.
like
Yeah, 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 yeah.
was it pizza?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so I love pizza and I will never cut pizza out of my diet, but I used to be able to like
Amen.
down half a pizza. Like Ben and I would just sit here, watch TV and down a pizza. Like that's our comfort food, you know. Love me good pizza. And the other day, like since I've been making healthier choices and I'm not really cutting things out, but I'm being mindful, like, oh, like damn, this these two meals are very carb heavy. Like maybe I should eat some vegetables, you know, more of that mindset. Like
Yeah.
um, when we ordered a pizza, I could only eat two pieces, and then I was like, bleh,
Oh,
like I just kind of felt crummy, you know? And it, well, I mean, it kind of sucks to be honest because I love
I,
pizza,
I,
but
I
then,
I was literally thinking that. Like, I would have been so upset. I would have been like, I want to eat the rest of the pizza.
right, but I felt satisfied, and that's, I don't know,
Good
I guess
enough,
it
I
just
guess.
means that the changes I'm making are making me feel better. I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah,
that's sort of my self care for the month of October, and just trying to you know, have good protein intake and move my body and make time to podcast and spend time with Ben and all these things, you know. So
of course.
October is like my month, but I'd be down to do something in November. We could document it.
Yeah,
We could do
yeah,
something on the podcast. We could link this to burnouts, do some sort of like challenge every day or I don't know, something. It'd be fun.
yeah. We'll definitely work something out. I think something that maybe like everyone could do. And like, have you ever done like those like trackers, and like you can make like a whole calendar, and each day it's like something else to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah, there was this movie, it's called The Fireproof, I think. Have you ever seen that? Fireproof?
I don't think so.
It's
Doesn't
a
ring a
very
bell.
like cheesy Christian movie, but
Okay.
it's really awesome and I actually love it. But it's like every day he does one little task, and he does this little task every day, and it's to help him build his in this particular movie. Um,
Okay.
but each task ends up leading to like a bigger purpose.
Mhm.
So like one day it'd be like taking the trash out to the curb, and like buying his wife like a flower on one day, or like cleaning the dishes, and all like these little things, and then it adds up to this, all those little things that he did built up to, he was a husband, and he was, like, his marriage was saved.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what, like, I think that if we do in our lives too, like, instead of, as much as we want it, like, instead of like eating a full pizza, like maybe taking a bath, or like, eating like something a little healthier,
Yeah.
and like little steps every day. And I'm with you. I'm never gonna give up pizza, but I've definitely been trying to like cut back, because pizza has a lot of like, you don't think about it, but there's a lot of calories in pizza, because you have like five different food groups all into like
Yeah.
one, all on one pizza.
Man, I'm such a sucker for cheese though. Like anything with cheese. Ben and I literally just discussed what we're gonna eat for dinner and we're gonna do buffalo chicken poutine for dinner.
Oh, stop it. Leanne, I'm in the middle of nowhere. I don't have access to this stuff. You can't.
But I
Oh,
just want to
that's so
preface
good.
this by saying I've eaten really well all day, so I can treat
Oh,
myself to buffalo chicken poutine. You know what I mean? Like
that
I woke
sounds
up, I
so.
had porridge, I did a workout, I had my protein shake, I had um I had a chicken wrap for lunch with apple on the side, and then I had crackers, cheese, and
Ooh.
pickles for snack, like just something to tie me over till dinner. And like nothing fancy, like listen, I'm not really the best cook, but I try. And but I'm such a sucker for carbs. Like I love pierogies. I love
Oh, yeah.
lasagna. Like I'm such a carb heavy. I just love that. So the fact that I like made a chicken wrap for lunch, like that's a step in the right direction, but I'm not limiting myself anything. So I'm still allowing myself to poutine, but that's my self-care for the
Yeah.
day. Is my poutine. So, I'm not
But it
currently
doesn't it doesn't have to be like this huge
no.
thing. Like, I feel like we see online like all like these health promoters, and we'll definitely talk about this next episode. But like,
Yeah, yeah.
it doesn't have to be like this like track everything you eat and like don't eat certain food groups and like
Yeah.
carbs are the devil and all that, right? Like you can
No.
just chill and like live life in moderation and balance.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like so in support of that. I don't ever want to cut anything out, but I just want to do something for myself and I'm trying to establish routine. I want to avoid burnout. I'm trying
Hmm.
to sleep well. All these things are really just kind of just trying to live a bit healthier, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Um, are you making the poutine yourself or are you getting it from somewhere?
no, we make it at home.
Oh, so good.
Yo, your mouth is
So
like
good.
watering listening to this, eh?
I brought some chicken wings and I was waiting to eat these chicken wings the whole entire time because I wanted to wait till I had like a night off. So that's what I'm gonna go
Yeah.
do after this, some barbecue chicken wings. And I
Nice.
bought some Oreos today too. Oreos
Oh,
and like
self-care
a
with
full thing of
Joe.
milk. Yeah, I was like, should I buy this whole like carton of milk? Like, cause like I'm leaving tomorrow, but I'm like, screw it, I'm doing it because like I want some milk and cookies.
Yeah,
It was
do it. Treat
totally
yourself.
worth it. Oh man,
Eh,
totally worth it.
That's so funny. Anyways, guys, I guess we could wrap up the episode here. We're kind of just rambling on now, but hope you got some valuable insight on how to manage burnout in this episode. Don't forget to share and follow Nurses with Attitude on Spotify. Joe, do you have anything you'd like to leave with?
Yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Just keep in mind that we all have seasons. Some seasons you're gonna have to work very hard. Some seasons, it might be a rest time too. But just remember, take all of this with a grain of salt and apply it in your lives where you can. If you have any comments, questions, if you want to throw a shout out, we're gonna leave our Instagrams in the bio. Reach out to us, and we'll make sure to get to it in the next episode.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
Peace.
Bye.